Welcome back to the Flying with the Flock podcast, the best place to get all of your Eagles and other NFL related news. I'm your host, Matt, and we are past the NFL draft, ladies and gentlemen. All the teams have added their picks, some good, some bad. Some players fell multiple rounds unsuspectingly, which we will cover in a second here. But before we jump into the meat and potatoes of this week's episode, I would just like to ask you guys to leave a like and subscribe down below. It would be much appreciated to show your growing support. Definitely helps the channel A grow and B gain more attention on the site. So if y'all could just do that, that would be much appreciated. But without further ado, let's hop straight into it. So before we hop into anything the Eagles did or any rumors that are coming out after the draft, there was one thing that happened that I wasn't entirely expecting, though I don't really care that he fell multiple rounds. That being Shedeur Sanders falling from arguably a possible first round pick to a day 3 fifth round pick. So yeah, let's go over that. So Shedeur Sanders, many people had him mocked within the first 10, possibly going at 9 to the Saints. Others had him going 21 to the Steelers, like I did. Rather, once he fell past the first round, he started to slide hard. It's not like some team traded up in the second round like I thought they might do to come up and just snag him. Rather, he fell all the way to pick 144 to the Cleveland Browns, who traded up to get him. Mind you, at this point, the Browns had already passed on him 6 times in this draft, and one of those times was already for Dillon Gabriel, another rookie quarterback. I mean, if you look at it, the Browns, and before we get into the situation, they already have now, including Watson and now Shedeur, they have 5 quarterbacks on the roster. But taking a more in-depth look at why he slid, it seems like after the past couple of days where everybody's been able to settle, every insider's been able to dig in on why this may have happened, there are a few reasons. One, it was most likely because, and I believe we touched on this months ago, that he did not have that great of combine interviews. He came off as arrogant. He came off as almost like telling the teams what he was going to do, rather than getting drafted to a place. He didn't have an agent, which hurt him and his brother, Shiloh Sanders, who later got rid of their dad as his agent, and he ultimately became an undrafted free agent, represented by Mike Rosenhaus, and went to the Buccaneers. But I feel like Shedeur needed somebody in between him and the franchises, not being his dad, to tell him, hey, this is how teams are kind of leaning. You need to clean up this part of your act. And it wasn't even just during the combine when this came off. There's rumors that when he went to a private workout a few days before the draft with the Giants, it seemed like he just rubbed Brian Daboll the wrong way. And so he never really stood a chance, in my opinion, at this point. Shedeur, he has the makings of a good quarterback, but he got in his own way. Him and his dad got in his own way of being a highly touted draft prospect. Obviously, you have Mel Kiper getting on it. Oh, I probably shouldn't say that. You have Mel Kiper completely glazing Shedeur Sanders the entire draft, yelling at 32 franchises for passing over him multiple times. This is my message to Mel Kiper. I'm better than you at this point. You I think like 5% of the time you get your draft stuff right. Yeah, you blow, pal. It's all right. It's all right. You don't have to blow a gasket on live television on ESPN because you suck, because you have a highly touted draft prospect in Shedeur Sanders falling. You had him going in the first round, but in actuality, he's not overly special. Again, the only thing that would have upped his stock, in my opinion, would have been if he was able to win a bowl game with Colorado. Rather, I believe his record as a starter in Colorado was 13-12. He is very basic as a quarterback, a pocket passer, which isn't a bad thing. That isn't. I'm not like ragging on that. A lot of times teams work better with just a solid pocket passer, drop back, can pick apart the defense. But he tried to build himself up as like a Cam Ward, somebody that's highly mobile and can make every throw and can lead a team to a bowl game. Whereas Shedeur Sanders did none of this. He never really proved himself to have like a winning gene in him during his time in college at all. And if you're going to be this basic pocket passer and hype yourself up throughout the entire draft process and think about other things than football, like when he was talking with Cam Ward, trying to get Cam Ward to make a song with him, and Cam Ward said, "I'm here for football. I'm a football player. My hobbies are football." That's what teams are looking for. Not a guy that hasn't shown that he's been able to win at a consistent rate. A guy with limited abilities, whether it's passing, his mobility is quite limited as well. And a guy that has a big name dad that is going to be breathing down the necks of franchises because he isn't starting. I mean, you even saw the Browns when they took Shedeur. They didn't seem that thrilled because they know they're going to have to deal with Deion Sanders. But at least they have a little bit more leverage in this oncoming fight that, hey, 5 guys were taken before your son. We passed on your son multiple times. He is not going to be the day one starter. I believe all the teams wanted to send that message to Shedeur, but not even Shedeur. They wanted to send that to Deion Sanders. Hey, he's not as good as you've been saying. And to show you that, he fell to the 5th round when you and all the draft analysts that are probably buddy-buddy with you had him going in the 1st round. So, am I surprised that Shedeur Sanders fell? Yes, I'm surprised at how far he fell. I'm surprised that teams were willing to take people like Tyler Shough ahead of him. Jalen Milroe, I could understand that. But there are many of quarterbacks taken in this draft. I'm kind of blanking on all of them. You have Cam Ward, obviously went number 1 overall. That was not a shocker at all. You had the Giants trade back in for Jackson Dart, and when they did that, I realistically thought that they were trading back in for Shedeur Sanders. I was like, okay, this is where he goes. He doesn't really fall much further than this. And then they take Jackson Dart in the 1st round, and I'm like, wow, okay, this is going to get interesting. And then once he fell into the 2nd round, I was like, okay, another team's going to trade up high to pick him. Nope, the Saints, nobody trades up. Saints take Tyler Shough, and all the other teams that need a quarterback pass on him. And some of them, like the Browns, take Dillon Gabriel in round 4 ahead of Shedeur Sanders as well. Who else? There's one of Jalen Milroe became the backup at Seattle. Will Howard, this is after Shedeur now. Will Howard went to the Steelers. I really like that pick. Riley Leonard went to the Colts. Not a bad idea. Quinn Ewers went to Miami. I think that's it. A lot of these guys, a lot of these quarterback prospects got drafted and got to go to a solid place, either to be a backup or a day 1 starter. But yeah, and this also brings into the situation that's going to be going down in Cleveland because they have 5 quarterbacks technically on the roster if you count Deshaun Watson, who could be out the entire season this coming season. You have Joe Flacco, who's my favorite to be the day one starter right now. You have obviously Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, and Kenny Pickett. My favorite right now is Joe Flacco to be the starter, Kenny Pickett to be the backup, and probably Shedeur to be the third stringer, with Dylan Gabriel being on the practice squad. I don't know what they're going to do in Cleveland. That's going to be a complete mess over the next couple of months, and they could be again vying for a top draft spot like they were this year. Obviously, they did trade back, so they did end up picking at 5. They took Mason Graham with their 5th-round pick, but that entire franchise is going to be in a little bit of a sticky situation because they have 5 quarterbacks, and they already say if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. Well, if you have 5, then you don't know how to draft right. So, yeah, that's that with Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns. It's definitely going to be an interesting situation to see. But until we're able to get some like on the field reps to see from Shedeur Sanders, there's no telling how this whole entire thing is going to play out. Alright, so let's take a look at the Eagles draft selections from the 2025 NFL Draft. This year, I am I don't want to say happy, but I'm satisfied with all the pickups they were able to get. And I have a couple of sneaky ones that I really like from the Eagles again. Obviously, Eagles traded up one spot to pick 31 with the Kansas City Chiefs to get Jihad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama. This is I didn't really have this kid falling that far. Where did I have him going? Oh, I had him going as early as 19 in my latest mock draft, which I don't have my first 2 past that, nor am I going back and listening to those episodes. But you get the idea. Jihad Campbell, solid. He's a good starter at Alabama. He is quite versatile at the linebacker position. He can play just straight up linebacker, being a fortress in the middle of the field, or he can also come off the edge. So he's kind of like what I've been calling him is a Zach Bond 2.0. He's very versatile. What I think the Eagles are going to use him more in is that pass rushing ability and also being able to pass rush off the ball as a linebacker, and then also be able to cover the flats as a linebacker as well. He reminds me, and I heard this the other day, I forget where, of an Andrew Van Ginkel kind of style player, which worked really well in Vic Fangio's system down in Miami while the two were down there. So I do really like this pick. He somehow slid, and the rumor is right now it seems like the Eagles try to trade up to number 22 to select him. They would have had to given up significant capital to trade up with the Chargers to select Jihad Campbell at 22, but rather they ended up just waiting it out, trading up one spot with the Chiefs, giving up, obviously, pick swapping in the first round and giving up a 5th-round pick, which they already had 4 of, so that's not much of a problem there. But overall, this was this is a Howie Roseman pick. It's a defensive pick that could automatically come in and make an impact on this defense, especially at the edge rusher position if they end up lining him off the ball. All right, their 2nd-round pick at pick number 64, they took safety Andrew Mabuka out of Texas. This kid is a hard hitter. This kid comes downfield to hit and arguably has a chance at becoming the starting safety alongside Reed Blankenship this year. He's definitely going to battle against Sidney Brown, and we're going to find out throughout training camp later in July and August who is going to be not the favorite. It's probably going to be Sidney Brown in the beginning, but I feel like Andrew Mabuka can make some noise and can possibly make the push. He had 5 interceptions with Texas last year, and prior to that with Clemson, throughout his 3-year career there, he only had 3 interceptions. So he's starting to figure out the game, start to trend upward, and he just lays the boom. He plays safety like a linebacker. So I'm definitely excited to see how Vic Fangio tries to acclimate this guy. Even if we bring in a veteran safety like a Justin Simmons, still, it's not a bad idea to give this kid some reps in order to save Justin Simmons' legs if we do bring him in, which I feel like that might be like a July-August thing. But yes, Andrew Mabuka seems to be another really sneaky pick. Not my favorite sneaky pick, but still a really good pick for the value. Next up, we have round 4, pick number 111. That being defensive tackle Ty Robinson out of Nebraska. This kid can ball. He gets after the quarterback. He can, I believe his signature move is like the bull rush. Like just mow the guy down in the middle. Looking at his career stats, he had 60. He played in 60 games with 47 starts, 134 tackles, 62.5 tackles for a loss, 12 sacks, 12 pass breakups. I would probably wish if that sack number maybe was a little bit high throughout his entire career, but still really solid numbers. I mean, I know I couldn't do that, so, I got to give my hats off there. But, yeah, another really solid pick. Helps build up and beef up these trenches here, which we desperately need at the minute. So, yeah, I can't really complain. It seems like another Howie pick. He picks in trenches. He's able to build up an area that we might need a little bit of help. And this guy might see some rotational starting time and might become the Milton Williams of the team alongside Moro Ojomo. All right, so round 5, we had a few picks here. Let's blitz through these because some of these guys I'm not overly thrilled with. Not overly thrilled with. They just don't interest me as much as my favorite pick that we're gonna get into in a little bit here. Round 5, pick 145. We have corner Mac McWilliams out of Central Florida, adding depth to that corner room, adding youth to that corner room. It's a really solid idea. Realistically, looking at his career stats, he started in 36 games, 133 total tackles, 25 pass breakups, and 2 interceptions in his career. Solid, but not special. Not like overly special in the statistics category. Their next 5th round pick with the number 161 overall pick is linebacker Samal Mondon. Samal Mondon, linebacker out of Georgia, bringing in another Georgia dog, obviously. Looking at some of his career stats, he had 32 starts as a Georgia Bulldog. He had 213 tackles, and 25 QB hits, 17.5 tackles for loss, and 8 sacks throughout his career. So at the linebacker position, he seemed to be fairly productive for this Georgia team here, and he was able to get after the quarterback quite a few times, actually, and fortify the middle of this defense. So, a solid pickup. A Georgia boy coming to Philly, nothing new, but again, a smaller, lesser-named Georgia guy to come in and maybe even mold into more of a Nakobe Dean kind of linebacker. And the last 5th round pick, we have pick 168. We have center/guard Drew Kendall out of Boston College. He started 37 games. He allowed 5 sacks on 1,256 pass block snaps. So he seems like a Jeff Stoutland kind of guy. He's going to come in. He's going to be depth piece. He Arguably, he's a big guy. He could become a day one starter. Oh, not a day one starter. He could become a second stringer, and if something happens, God forbid, he could become a starter. But as of right now, I would like to see Jeff Stoutland take his time, mold this kid into the best form of himself, and allow him to come into his own, especially under a system that really helps offensive linemen do that kind of thing. All right, into the 6th round. We got a backup quarterback in Kyle McCord out of Syracuse. I completely forgot about him when we were talking about quarterbacks. But similar to Jahad Campbell, Kyle McCord is another local boy. He's from South Jersey here. So, looking at him, he's a really solid quarterback. I mean, looking at his career stats, he had 26 starts, 8,555 passing yards, 61 passing touchdowns, and a 22-4 record. He started at Ohio State for a few years, then he transferred over to Syracuse for his last year. He led the FBS with an ACC record of 4,779 passing yards during his senior year at Syracuse, and overall, a really solid pickup at backup quarterback. He'll probably end up being our third stringer and battling it out for against Dorian Thompson-Robinson, because I believe Tanner McKee has that backup role kind of sealed up, especially at the after the end of last year. All right, next up we have tackle at Michigan, Myles Hilton, with pick 191. Looking at some of his stats here, started 31 games, allowed 8 sacks, and that's off of 1,020 pass blocking snaps. Seems to be fairly consistent. We bring him in again to Jeff Stoutland University, also with a former Wolverine, that being Trevor Keegan, who's already here and already possibly vying for a starting position on this offensive line, but that is to be determined. But yeah, Myles Hinton seems like a solid pickup. Again, another classic Howie move. Bring in a big offensive tackle, bring in some depth, which we kind of need at the offensive line at this time. We also picked another tackle with pick 207, that being Cameron Williams, tackle out of Texas. He played in 37 games, only started 16 games. He allowed 6 sacks on 612 passing blocks. So, not as good as the other two, but still, it seems like he didn't get as much time to develop as the other two. He entered the draft after his junior year this year, so he possibly could have went higher, but it's not a bad position to come in to Jeff Stoutland University and have to develop into somebody that could not exactly start, but become a solid backup and maybe eventually earn the recognition from other teams. Alright, here's my favorite pick of the draft. This is a complete steal. I would have thought that this guy would have went way higher this year. That being Antoine Powell-Ryland, offensive or outside linebacker from Virginia Tech. This kid can really get after the quarterback here, and that's realistically what we're looking for. He's played in 52 games, had 29 starts, 117 total tackles, 41 tackles for a loss, 30 sacks, 9 forced fumbles. This kid is a complete menace on this defensive line at Virginia Tech. Now, we bring him in here, and we help refine him even more as a pass rusher, and he's not even our first option. We can allow him to sit behind guys like a Jahad Campbell, like a Jalix Hunt, like a Nolan Smith, allow him to sit behind them and sort of develop into an even better player, which is saying something because he runs with ferocity, especially off the ball here. I thought he would have went higher, maybe 4th, 5th round, but the fact that he fell to us at pick 209 in the 6th round at our last pick is a solid pickup. Who he kind of reminds me of a little bit? Brandon Graham. Just a tiny bit. But just for some reason watching him, he just moves with such ferocity after the ball is snapped that it's hard to even stop him as a offensive tackle. He will get low and then he'll get up and get to the quarterback. So overall, this is my favorite pick of the entire draft. And yes, it's our last pick, but it's the highest value possible for a guy like Antwon Powell Ryland, who's been able to put up such numbers at his time at Virginia Tech. Alright, so those are all the Eagles selections, but I just want to go over the NFL draft, compare my mock draft to what actually happened. So without further ado, let's jump right into this with pick number 1. Was kind of a lock for everyone, that being Cam Ward to the Titans. Understandable. We've talked about this for a couple weeks now. I'm not going to continue to comment on it anymore. Just, yeah, Cam Ward to the Titans. Their new franchise guy. Next up, so I originally had the Browns staying in place and taking Travis Hunter, but the the Jaguars traded up with the Browns. They traded their next first-round pick, which is a little bit understandable. If you're trading up into top 2, you're going to have to give up multiple first rounds. So they traded up, took the unicorn that is Travis Hunter, who's going to play wide receiver and corner, it seems like. It seems like the general manager drafted him for that reason. And maybe that's the reason they gave up 2 first-round picks this year and next year's. They have their wide receiver that they would most likely draft next year and their corner that they were going to draft this year. So, really solid pick here. I kind of do really love this pick for the Jaguars, and I thought, I figured that they would make some move. I'm not entirely surprised, though I did have them sitting still at number 5. It's not overly surprising that they trade up for a guy like a Travis Hunter. Alright, number 3, got this one, Abdul Carter to the Giants. Makes too much sense. They were linked to each other for a long time, and they just need a dominant guy on the edge of their defensive line to get after the quarterback and take less attention off of Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns as well. I keep forgetting that he's on that defensive line. All right, next up I got the same thing as well. Patriots select Will Campbell at 4. Just makes too much sense. They need to protect their franchise guy. They bring in the best offensive tackle in the draft, in my opinion. And, yeah, simple as that. Got it. Good. All right. I had the Jaguars sticking at 5 and taking an offensive tackle to protect Trevor Lawrence. In actuality, the Browns traded back with the Jaguars and selecting Mason Graham, defensive tackle out of Michigan, adding a threat up the middle that can take a little bit more pressure off of Myles Garrett on that edge position there. Solid pickup. Not my favorite thing for the Browns here. I believe they have a couple other needs, like offensive line is a big need for them, but shoring up the defensive side of the trenches isn't a bad idea as a whole. So, solid pickup from the Browns here at pick number 5. I got this one as well. Raiders took Ashton Jeanty at pick number 6. They need a dynamic guy. Pete Carroll, at his best coaching, always had a dynamic running back behind a solid pocket passer or a solid quarterback. So they bring in a Ashton Jeanty to take a little bit of pressure off their quarterback, and it's going to be fun to watch Ashton Jeanty in the league at this point. At 7, I had the Jets taking Tyler Warren. Instead, the Jets took offensive tackle Armand Mbu. That's not overly surprising. He was linked to them multiple times. I kind of just figured that while I had the Jaguars taking him already, they need a tight end at this point. But still, a really solid pickup helping beef up that offensive line, which the Jets do kind of need, which was proven by the first half of last year and even the second half of last year. So, they don't want to kill their quarterback who's getting paid like $30 million in 2 years. So, yeah, beef up some offensive line and pray for the best, Jets fans. Number 8, I had the Panthers taking Jalen Walker. They ended up taking Taratoa McMillan. They need help at the wide receiver position. I don't believe Xavier Legette is probably as good as we all thought he was going to be, but he's still a really decent wide receiver. But bringing in a guy like Taratoa McMillan could up Bryce Young's game as a whole and take less pressure off of Xavier Legette as a whole. So, solid pickup by the Panthers here, helping beef up and bring youth to a wide receiver room that desperately kind of needs it at this point, especially with Adam Thielen still being there and then picking up Hunter Renfrow at this point. Saints went an interesting way. They took, I had them taking Mason Graham, who obviously went to the Browns in actuality. So, in real life, the Saints took offensive tackle out of Texas, Kelvin Banks Jr. Solid pickup, but I do believe, solid pickup. They needed help on the offensive line to not get their quarterbacks killed, and especially now with a few quarterbacks vying for that starting spot, that being Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shuck, might have been, it's not Tim Boyle. I don't think Tim Boyle's vying for a starting spot there at quarterback. I forget who the other guy was. It's that pretty boy that's always showing up everywhere. But yeah, solid pickup, smart pickup from the Saints. Next up, we have the Bears at 10. I had them taking Kelvin Banks, who the Saints actually took, but I didn't even think that they would take this guy this high. They took Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan. I'm not a huge fan of this. I feel like Tyler Warren is the better tight end out of the two. But Colston Loveland is a solid tight end. He's a good pass catcher. They already have Cole Kmet, so I do feel like there's a couple other needs. They could have taken an Omarion Hampton at this pick to help bring some dynamic running to this backfield. But they bring in a solid tight end at pick number 10. Everybody's trying to get the next Brock Bowers, so I would like to see how this pick works out. Not a huge fan of it right now, but I was also a fan of the Brock Bowers pick a year ago. So I am more than happy to be wrong. Alright, let's see. The 49ers, I had them taking Will Johnson. They ended up taking Mikael Williams, edge out of Georgia, helping shoring up this defensive line, which as of late has been their weaker side of their entire team, and that used to be their staple. So they needed to shore up, bring some youth in, especially on the other edge position alongside Nick Bosa, especially losing out on Joey Bosa this offseason. So I'm not surprised that they went here. They still have a hole at the corner position and safety position that they need to fill, with Charvarius Ward leaving and Taloa Ofunga leaving as well. So I do feel like there's a better option. They could have went with this pick, but still a solid pickup. A guy out of Georgia is never a wrong way to go at this point. Let's see. I had the Cowgirls taking Taratoa McMillan, who obviously went to the Panthers. In actuality, they ended up taking Tyler Booker, offensive guard out of Alabama. He's a big guy. He's been known to be beat, but he comes in and tries to replace Zach Martin. I would like to see how well this goes. The Cowgirls have a track record for not being able to groom their rookies, especially on the offensive line, that well. So, yeah, we'll see how well this goes. I'm definitely excited to see him going up against Jalen Carter next year. Dolphins, number 13, I had them taking Jahdae Barron. They ended up taking Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle out of Michigan. Over the past couple of drafts, they've been trying to build up this defensive line with like Chop Robinson last year and somebody else a year before. So, not a bad idea. Continue to commit to the defensive front, but as of right now, I have more questions about Tyreek Hill and your quarterback than I do your defense, too. And I have more questions about your head coach than anybody else, in theory. So I would love to see what the Dolphins do, but I don't think that they do as well as they think, and they probably should have selected maybe offensive line or somebody else at this position, or somebody else at this pick. Number 14, I had the Colts taking Colston Loveland, but instead they take Tyler Warren, the other tight end out of Penn State. Yeah, he kind of fell into their laps. They got lucky. Yeah, I already kind of talked about Tyler Warren. He's a athletic specimen there. He's a top guy in this draft. I thought he probably would have went obviously earlier, but yeah, solid pickup from the Colts. I can't complain. Gives Anthony Richardson a big target over the middle. Now it's prove it time for Anthony Richardson and their head coach Shane Steichen as well, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see how Indianapolis plays out. But Tyler Warren, a solid pick and a safe pick for the Colts at number 14. At number 15, I had the Falcons taking Mikael Williams, but they took the other Georgia pass rusher, that being Jalen Walker, who ends up falling. I originally had him going to the Panthers at 8, but he falls to the Falcons here at 15. They shore up a need. They need defensive line bad. Over the past, since I was born, they have never had a good defensive line, especially at the edge rushing position, so they need to bring in some youth to help shore up that side. Raheem Morris, I feel like, will do a good job kind of grooming him and their other first-round pick, which we'll touch on in a couple of minutes here. But I feel like this is a really solid pick for the Falcons here at number 15. Number 16, I had the Cardinals taking Derek Harmon, another defensive tackle, but instead, in actuality, they took Walter Nolan, a guy that I was hoping maybe falls a little bit more so the Eagles could possibly snag him, but no dice on that one. Oh well, really solid defensive tackle, help take pressure off of Josh Sweat for being the top guy on that defensive line, and as a whole becomes a surefire starter here at Arizona. At number 17, I had the Bengals taking a different edge rusher, that being Mike Green, but in actuality they ended up taking Shamar Stewart, a guy that has been fairly inconsistent during his time here at Texas A&M. I would definitely love to see him step it up here in the pros, but I got to give him time. He needs to develop, especially if he's going alongside of Trey Hendrickson. If he's not, then this might not be the best of ideas here. Although they are taking a position of need, we got to see how this entire Trey Hendrickson situation plays out. So I had a trade here. I had the Steelers trading up with the Seahawks to take Shedeur at 18. In actuality, I had the Seahawks trading back to 21, and with that pick, they took offensive line. They took tackle Josh Simmons. Instead, they took offensive guard Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. Solid pick, maybe a little bit of a reach for how high they were picking compared to where they probably could have gotten him, but oh well. just how the game is played. Yeah, a solid pickup for the Seahawks. Not my favorite pick of the night, but definitely not my least favorite. They hit a position of need on their team. Buccaneers, I originally had them taking Jahad Campbell. Instead, they took Emeka Mbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Very interesting pick. It shows that, hey, our two top wide receivers are getting older here. It's time that we start thinking about the future, bring in a guy that can learn behind these two and be our next Mike Evans. So, Emeka Mbuka, solid pickup here. Yeah, I do feel like they probably should have went defense, brought in some youth on that defense, especially on the defensive line. But I'm not going to complain too much. Solid pick. Originally, I had the Broncos at 20 taking on Marion Hampton. They ended up taking Jahdae Barron, corner out of Texas. Interesting pick. It helps make their defense even better, especially in the secondary. I just question if there were other needs that needed to be tackled at this point. But maybe they just didn't like some of the guys that were still on the board. So I don't have too much to talk about with this one. So yeah, Jahdae Barron to the Broncos. At 21, obviously I had the Steelers trading up to take Shedeur at 18, but instead they stayed in place, taking Derek Harmon, defensive tackle out of Oregon. I guess kind of becoming the predecessor to Cam Hayward, to learn behind him, and they possibly bring in the next Steelers great, or who they hope could be the next Steelers great defensive lineman. At 22, I have the Chargers taking Matthew Golden, which in actuality they took Omarion Hampton, running back out of North Carolina. I've already talked about Omarion Hampton, a really dynamic running back in the backfield. Would have been I had him possibly going earlier. I had him going earlier to their defensive or to their division rivals, the Broncos. He could have went even earlier, but he ultimately ends up going to the Chargers here at 22. I can't say that the Chargers don't have, but they still need more wide receiver talent. Packers, I had them taking Shamar Stewart, who obviously got taken by the Bengals earlier. So they take Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas at 23. Solid pickup. Bring in a guy that they can say, hey, this is your wide receiver number one. The rest of you guys fall behind. We don't care what you guys end up being. But Matthew Golden is our guy. So, again, solid pick. I can't really complain. The Vikings take Donovan Jackson, offensive guard out of Ohio State, at pick number 24, where I had them taking Nick Emiliorie. So, yeah, they saw that their offensive line got exposed the last two games of the season, and that made Sam Darnold hesitate when it mattered most. So they bring in a guy to beef up this offensive line and to protect J.J. McCarthy, who seems to be the starter at this point. So, yeah, solid pick. They hit a position of need. They also need secondary, but they were able to deal with that throughout the draft as well. So, solid pickup for the Vikings here as well. So at 25, I originally had the Texans taking Luther Burden III. In actuality, the Giants traded back into the first round for quarterback Jackson Dart. They definitely need a quarterback at the helm. A franchise guy like Jackson Dart wouldn't be an entirely bad idea. So I do kind of like the pick. I need to see Jackson Dart develop. A lot of people are saying it reminds them of the Josh Allen situation, where Brian Daboll got his hands on Josh Allen and were able to develop him as well. So I do feel like Jackson Dart could become a good quarterback in the league. Just we got to give it time at first. And then I originally had the Rams selecting Emeka Mbuka at 26 here, but in actuality, the Falcons made the worst trade possible in this draft, that being they traded so much capital. They traded a next year first round pick, this year's second round pick, a third pick next year to trade back up at a late round first round pick and to take another edge rusher, James Pierce Jr., out of Tennessee. He's still an amazing player, don't get me wrong, but they gave up way too much to trade back in when they already got an edge rusher. Though they helped shore up the other side of the line with another young stud, it's slightly concerning that they were willing to give up that much at this point to bring in a guy like James Pierce Jr. So, not my favorite pick. Probably my least favorite situation to come out of the draft here. I would have liked to see the Falcons hold on to some of that future capital, but at the end of the day, there's nothing they can really do at this point. Alright, I had Ravens taking Malik Starks at 27. That's what they ended up doing. Bring in a guy to go alongside Kyle Hamilton and lay out guys at the end of the day. Not going to talk too much about it because I've already done that in my mock draft. I had the Lions taking James Pierce Jr. at 28. Obviously, he went earlier. They ended up taking Talik Williams, defensive tackle out of Ohio State. Solid pick. Again, shore up this defensive line, which is kind of the same idea I went in with James Pierce Jr. So, just a similar idea, different position with Talik Williams. But overall, really solid pick there. Shoring up a position and an area that got really injured last season that held them back, that being their defensive line. All right, at 29, I had the Commanders taking Maxwell Hairston. In actuality, they took Josh Cornelly Jr., offensive tackle out of Oregon. They shored up both sides of the offensive line here, which I do really like for Jaden Daniels. They brought in a Laramie Tunsil to be the left tackle. They bring in a Josh Cornelly Jr. to be the right tackle. Two guys who they're going to have for a while to help ensure the edges of this offensive line are locked down for the most part. So, good pick by the Commanders here. Had the Bills taking Walter Nolan at pick number 30, but instead they took Maxwell Hairston, a really solid corner. He plays with a lot of spirit, a lot of physicality, and that shows through with how he kind of interacted with everybody throughout the draft. So again, the Bills bring in a surefire guy that could bring in some fans and can satisfy the need at becoming younger in the secondary. Obviously, Eagles took Jahad Campbell at 31. Obviously, I had them taking Donovan Ezakaru at pick number 32. Obviously, that didn't happen. We traded up, took a guy that they really wanted to take. So, we already talked on that. And then the Chiefs obviously traded back at 32. They selected Josh Simmons, another offensive tackle out of Ohio State this time, to help shore up their biggest flaw that got exposed on the Super Bowl stage, that being their offensive line as a whole. Alright, so that's going to do it for this episode. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys could, again, leave a like and subscribe down below, that would be much appreciated. If you guys could follow us over on Twitter, that would also be much appreciated as a whole. But until next time, I'm your host, Matt, and remember, go Birds.